What would happen if Metroid and Half-Life Alyx had a baby? You would get this VR game, Genotype. Genotype is one of the most slept on games that have come out this month for the Quest platform. Honestly, this game was a really pleasant surprise because honestly, and most people who follow the channel know, I'm mostly a PC VR guy. So most of my games I will play on this channel are PC games. After getting the Quest 3, Genotype is one of the first games I've actually played in standalone in a very long time. And I'm not gonna lie, it was very surprising. This game is very complex. It honestly feels like they thought everything out about this game, from level design to combat mechanics to a really cool way of changing weapons and using inventory. So what is this game about? You play as Everly, an intern at an Antarctic weather station. So yeah, you're in the South Pole, which is a first. I don't think I've ever played a game in the South Pole, so this is very interesting. During a routine expedition, Everly falls through the ice into the mysterious Snowdrop Initiative laboratories. After falling, you meet William, the facility's last human survivor, and William guides you throughout the rest of the story. So you have to do everything in your power to survive and figure out what the hell happened to this facility. I must say the narrative in this game is actually interesting. Now that is something that a lot of VR games, I do have to admit, kind of miss out on. They'll kind of put roguelike elements into a game instead of providing an actual story. This game has a really great story. There's even audio logs you pick up around the map to even listen to more about what happened to the facility, some of the characters who were there before you got there, and it's honestly just very impressive. But before we get into the nitty gritty, this video is sponsored by VR Cover. Use code MartydudeVR Q3 for 10% off any VR cover for the Quest 3. The base Quest 3 is very uncomfortable, and VR Cover totally changes that with the foam interface. I highly recommend it. It's very hygienic, you can clean it, and it's just soft, man. It makes playing games so much better. But let's get back to the video. Now let's talk about one of the things that makes this game really interesting, and it is the grade gloves.
You see those gloves? They're a prototype of the grade, and organic. All right, there's a ripcord attached to your dominant hand. It lights up when you approach it with the other glove. Pull the ripcord to print an organism. Try again. Pull the illuminated ripcord. The cord is at the bottom of the glove of your dominant hand. Grab it and pull it, then let go. Finally!
So these are organic printing gloves, and they serve a lot of purposes in this game. One, it helps with the combat. Being able to switch weapons in combat is always important in the game, but the way that Genotype does it is honestly very interesting. So your right hand is pretty much the organic printing device. So you can pull a ripcord, and depending on how you pull it, pretty much determines on which weapon that you change into. And seeing your hand transform into these different fleshy weapons is disgusting, but it's also one of the coolest things I've seen in a VR game. And what makes it even worse is the level of graphic fidelity this game has. This is actually a really good looking standalone game. That's coming from a primarily PC VR guy. I love the art style and the way this game looks. It has very interesting enemy designs, and the gray gloves look really cool on your hands. The gray gloves also serve other purposes as being your inventory system. So what's cool is on the left hand, you can also inject different health packs, ammos, and stuff like that, kind of reminiscent of Bioshock. It really reminds me of Bioshock in the way that you inject plasmids in that game. But in this game, you inject everything into your left hand. So ammo, syringes from health, different power-ups you find throughout the game. You play audio logs on your hand. It's really, really intuitive, and it makes using everything really simple. There's also a really simple inventory system that pops up when you press a button, and it basically just in front of you, you can pick up and put items and stuff in there, and it's really simple, and it only gives you so many slots. So they really thought of everything when they were making mechanics for this game, and you gotta respect it, especially, you know, this being indie devs. If this really could have been a AAA game, is that level of quality. Let's talk about the enemies in this game. Personally, I hate bug enemies, but there are an abundance of them in this game. And it makes for some very creepy moments because they will sneak up on you and they attack you in hordes. I do gotta give it to the developers. They are really creative when it comes to the different enemy types and boss looks in this game. Some of the enemies actually kind of made the hairs on my arms kind of stand up because some of them are just really big bug creatures. It is just like terrifying for people like me who hate bug creatures in VR games. But I do have to give them +10 for creativity because usually these type of games that have like 1 or 2, maybe 3 types of enemies, but Genotype has a lots of different enemy types and they all do kind of different things or interact with the player in a different way. So gotta respect that. Let's talk about crafting. There's actually a really decent crafting system in this game. So you basically use terminals to craft. And so you can upgrade your weapons, you can upgrade yourself, and there's different ways of pretty much upgrading everything in the game. So changing the way a certain weapon shoot or changing the type of weapon it is. And it makes for really smooth crafting. Usually I hate crafting in these type of games, but you have to be really smart about how you use your ammo in this game because you run out of ammo and you have to use your melee weapon to actually survive. And that makes it really hard because a lot of these enemies do shoot at you. So if you're gonna play this game, I highly recommend making sure you have ammo before you go into any situation. I do respect how easy they made it because I hate convoluted crafting systems, but this one is actually straightforward and fun. You also use terminals to save your game. So it does have that old school feel of like, if you quit the game randomly, your progress isn't gonna save because I don't think there's any autosave. But that's totally fine with me because I actually do like games like that where you actually have to think about, okay, if I go here before I save, then I might lose my progress. If I die, and you will die a lot in this game, I'm not gonna lie. I've died a few times in this game. And usually I honestly just breeze through VR games, but this one actually has a very large degree of challenge because if you're stuck in an area with enemies, you can't leave until all the enemies are gone most of the time. And they will follow you. They're very aggressive. So crafting and saving is very key in this game. Now that I've gone over the praises of this game, I do have a few things that I kind of didn't like. The first thing is the mission structure. I do feel like it's really redundant after a while because essentially it's just kind of like a laundry list of things you got to do in each area. There's no real deviation from that. I feel like this game could benefit from a more varied mission structure versus what they have now. And also the combat. While I do like the combat, being able to switch weapons and stuff like that, it kind of gets boring after a while because the enemies just spawn in waves and they shoot at you with bullets. And it just kind of turns into like a bullet hell kind of situation where you have these enemies spawning in, they're shooting at you. They spawn in again, they shoot at you some more. But there's no real deviation from that. So while I do feel like there are a lot of enemy types in this game, I think actually changing up how combat works, because most of the time I just strafe the enemy bullets and then I got like the whole room's clear and I done killed everything. I do want some that deviates from that, maybe like more special enemies that while they may look different, they do different things, right? Also, the bosses are really easy. Like I said before, you can just strafe them and then you're pretty much good. And the last thing is the actual use of the disposable injections. So some of the injections give you haste, invisibility, and other things like that, but you never really feel a need to use them because the enemies are so easy to beat. Like, I've been playing the game for some hours now and I haven't felt the need to use haste or invisibility, but maybe like one time, and that was because I just got it and I was like, oh, let me try it out. So while I do feel like the game is amazing in a lot of aspects, I feel like some parts of it are kind of half-baked maybe. But I do feel like if there's ever a Genotype 2, they can have a lot they can improve on. Another thing is interaction with the world. Like, I feel like you should be able to pick stuff up around the game. Because even in Half-Life: that was like one of the main selling points, is that you can interact with the world. But in Genotype, the only interaction you get is with items or like doors. There's no just picking up this random book or anything like that in this game. Now that could be a limitation by, it being on the Quest, which is another thing I'm gonna talk about, but I do feel like they need that for that next game. Speaking of it being on Quest, I really wish there was a PC VR port of this game, because I feel like that does kind of hurt the marketing for a really great experience. Like, this is one of my favorite VR games for this year right now, I'm not gonna lie. Probably definitely top 10. And I play a lot of VR games, but I feel like marketing really helps when you do have a PC VR port of a game. With that being said, This is the closest that Quest games have gotten to Half-Life Alyx, and I definitely highly recommend anybody who's listening to this review right now, go check out this game like right now. It's a must buy, must play, and I swear you will not be disappointed. Shout out bolverkgames for giving me a key to play this and review it. I really appreciate you guys. We got more reviews coming, out of hand review coming soon. Check that out when it comes out. It's me, MartydudeVR, and remember, I'm just a dude with a VR headset. Peace.